to Something with Rebecca. My name is Rebecca, and today we're doing something a little bit different. So this video was originally supposed to be an episode of Useless History with Rebecca. My cousin Emma told me that I should do an episode on vampires, and I was like, heck yeah, I should. I started researching vampires, and then I was doing a lot of research for it yesterday, and I wasn't quite sure what I was gonna do, and I was a little bit confused. So then I thought maybe I could do a video on the evolution of vampires from like Dracula to Edward Cullen, but that would necessitate just ripping off someone else's article, and I didn't want to just rip off someone else's article. I wanted to actually make my own thing. So I decided, you're gonna laugh at me, I don't know how to explain this. So after I decided that I couldn't do a video on just vampires, I decided I was gonna do a video on lots of Halloween monsters, and I was gonna make a tier list of how scary they are according to me, specifically like child me. So let's go through all the tiers. The bottom tier is unbothered. This is for stuff that probably would not bother child Rebecca or current Rebecca. Next we have pleasantly spooky, which is for things that are spooky but in a fun way. Then we have pretty scary. I don't know what this says about me that the third tier is pretty scary. Next up we have I am uncomfy, which is for things that are like so scary or gross that I'm physically uncomfortable. Then at the very top we have probably at the root of my Samhainophobia. I had Samhainophobia as a child, or I think I had Samhainophobia as a child. I was never diagnosed or anything, so that could be a lie, but let's just roll with it for the purposes of this video, okay? And then once I created that tier, I had the idea to expand it further to not just Halloween monsters, but just Halloween things that I'm gonna rank. And so this video has stopped being about vampires, even though it will involve vampires and some history about vampires, etc. It has turned into a deep dive into my Samhainophobia. It's an exploration of my fears. I'm facing my fears today, okay? And that's what Halloween is all about. First of all, we should figure out what a phobia is. The NHS website says all phobias can limit your daily activities and may cause severe anxiety and depression. Well, first of all, Halloween only shows up once a year, so it can't really interrupt my daily life. Second of all, I was anxious anyway. So, people with phobias often purposely avoid coming into contact with the thing that causes them fear and anxiety. Yeah. Physical symptoms, sweating, I'm just sweaty anyway. Sensation of butterflies in the stomach, nausea, I had those. Headaches and dizziness, sometimes. Fear of losing control, feelings of dread. I had dread surrounding Halloween as a child. This is from typesofphobia.com. In other words, just thinking about Halloween can trigger an overwhelming sense of fear in these people. Okay, so I wouldn't say that it's that severe. Maybe I don't really have like a phobia, but it's like getting there. I'm speaking in the present tense, but this is definitely a past tense thing. I definitely still don't have Samhainophobia. Here is what happened. I filmed me making the tier list right after that last chunk you just saw, but my laptop fan was very noisy during the entire video, and it might have been fine, but I don't like it. And that's what really matters here. I don't like the sound underneath. I decided that it would make me happiest to just refilm. And now, instead of making the tier list in front of you guys, I'm just gonna talk about why I put everything where I did. Here we go, let's do this. So first of all, we have vampires. We've got a nice picture of Count Dracula right there. So vampires date back to ancient Greece. Garlic has been used to protect against the supernatural since ancient Egypt. A vampire trait that is less common today is being obsessed with counting things. Yeah, so the idea is that you would spill a bag of seeds on the ground, and then the vampire would be compelled to count every single seed, and hopefully it would take so long that he wouldn't notice the sun was coming up, and then he would die. That's a way to kill vampires. Eastern Europe is where vampire stories are really popular, and Lord Byron wrote a vampire story. If you don't know who Lord Byron is, he's gonna come up again, if you can believe it or not, for a different monster. You will hear about I need to do an episode dedicated to Lord Byron. I have so many other episodes that people have asked for, and so little time. Never midterm in 6 days that I'm not prepared for, and I got 65% on a quiz today. Anyway, Bram Stoker wrote the ever-popular Dracula, which is potentially based off of 2 historical figures, Vlad the Impaler and Elizabeth Bathory. If you don't know who Elizabeth Bathory is, oh boy, she's a Transylvanian noblewoman who is one of the most prolific female serial killers of all time. She tortured and killed hundreds of young women in her castle. People thought she was a vampire. We also don't know if she actually did commit all of those crimes or if it was people lying about her to get her stuff. It's an interesting story. However, she will not be the subject of an episode of Useless History with Rebecca, because when I started reading about her yesterday, I actually got sick to my stomach. Oh, and Twilight, we have to discuss Twilight. Edward Cullen, what a beautiful man. I've gotta say, Twilight, it's not as bad as I thought it was gonna be, but then again, I'm also the target demographic. It's not like it was good, but it wasn't that bad. It wasn't as bad as everyone makes it sound like it is. Anyway, so vampires go in the pleasantly spooky category. Next we have werewolves. This is not a picture of a werewolf, but it is a public domain picture of a wolf because I'm afraid of copyright law. There's a psychiatric condition called lycanthropy that makes you believe that you are a wolf or another animal. Loups-garous is French for werewolf. Loups-garous, I think, is a much better name than werewolf. I know werewolf is like cool, as Professor Snape taught us in the Prisoner of Azkaban movie. Were is Old English for man, and wolf is Old English for wolf. But I don't care. Loups-garous, it rhymes and it sounds fancy. There were lots of werewolf stories and sightings in France. There were werewolf trials and convictions there that happened alongside the witch trials, and that's probably what inspired the game. I have the boxed game Werewolves of Miller's Hollow. I love it a lot. I've actually played werewolf with Emma. The Epic of Gilgamesh has a man turning into a wolf in 2100 BC. So, werewolves are old. Finally, we also have to address Twilight and their questionable treatment of Native American myth. We're not gonna get into this today because other people have said it better than me, but I'd just like to remind everyone that the tribe in Twilight is an actual Native American tribe. Anywho, it goes in pleasantly spooky. Next we've got mummies. In the 12th to 17th centuries, ground-up Egyptian mummies were used as medicine in Europe. Eating ground-up mummy. Powdered mummy. Can you imagine? So instead of powdered milk, you make it out of powdered mummy? I just grossed myself out. I put it in I am uncomfy because when I was younger, I did not like reanimated dead bodies. I still don't like reanimated dead bodies. Next, we've got clowns. Probably at the root of my Samhainophobia. Next, we have the puka. So the puka is an Irish fairy. Puka means goblin. It's a shapeshifter, but it usually looks like a horse. They can speak. November 1st is Puka's Day, and when you harvest on Puka's Day, you have to leave some of the food you harvest behind in the field so the puka can eat it, or else. I didn't know about pukas when I was a kid, so I don't know what young me would have thought, but I think I would have thought it was pretty cool, but also kind of spooky, and so I put it in unbothered. Next, we have witches / crones / hags, and we talked a lot about them last episode when we did the Salem witch trials, so I'm not going to talk more about it. I put her in pleasantly spooky. I'm not really all that bothered by witches anymore, but I have a distinct memory of going to this fall festival thing with my family, and there's this woman dressed as a witch with the nose and the green face paint, and I really didn't like that. But for the most part, witches, pleasantly spooky. Next, we have zombies. Voodoo religious practices inspired our modern stories about zombies. There's something called tetrodotoxin. I believe it comes from pufferfish, and in sublethal doses, it gives symptoms of zombieism, like sluggishness and appearing dead. I decided to put zombies in I am uncomfy because I am still afraid of zombies to this day. Even though I think zombie stories are fun, I'm afraid of them, and also they're gross. Zombies go in I am uncomfy. I don't like reanimated bodies. And next we have Frankenstein's monster, which actually does not have a name in the book Frankenstein. So Frankenstein is the first science fiction novel and also the first non-religious creation myth. The monster in the story wants love and affection and is actually very intelligent and holds philosophical conversations, but no one loves him and they're all disgusted by him even though he wants love and affection. Frankenstein came to be in a writing contest, yeah. The author of Frankenstein, Mary Shelley, was stuck in a vacation house in Switzerland because it was raining a lot. She was there with her husband and her lover and her husband's lover. Her lover and her husband's lover are the same person. Yeah, Lord Byron, he's back. When the guy you're having an affair with is also having an affair with your husband. But we're not gonna get too far into that. Anyway, they were all stuck inside because it was storming like nobody's business, and Byron challenged them all to a writing contest. They all had to write a ghost story. Mary's won. Honestly, good job. She was only 19 when she wrote the first science fiction novel. I'm 19. And I haven't written the first science fiction novel. I'm gonna invent a genre. I'll think of something. When I was a kid, I would have put him in I Am Uncomfy, but I think he's just pretty scary. Because, like, yeah, he killed people, but don't you feel bad for him? Like, his dad never taught him how to be a good person. He just wants a girl monster. Also, the fact that Victor freaks out when the monster asks for a wife is concerning, because, Victor, it's very easy to make sure that the monsters don't reproduce, because that was his fear, apparently. I haven't read Frankenstein. I really need to read Frankenstein. He was afraid that the monsters would reproduce, and so he didn't want to make the monster a wife. And I'm like, bro, do you know how easy it is to make sure that doesn't happen? You're a scientist, my guy. Pull yourself together. The monster goes in pretty scary. Next we have Victor Frankenstein. That's right, I'm counting Victor Frankenstein as a monster, because people are always like, no, the monster's name isn't Frankenstein. Bro, are you sure about that? I think you have to be a monster to rob many graves, build a human body out of those bodies, reanimate it, and then irresponsibly abandon it. And I put Victor Frankenstein in I Am Uncomfy, because the fact that anyone could do what Victor Frankenstein did makes me uncomfortable. Next we've got the Headless Horseman. So the Headless Horseman comes from a short story called The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Apparently the Headless Horseman is based off of American, Dutch, and German folktales, and there's a town in New York that was originally called Kinderhook that renamed itself Sleepy Hollow in 1996. I put the Headless Horseman in I Am Uncomfy because I'm not so much afraid of it now, but we're talking about childhood, Rebecca, and I have a distinct memory of a cartoon. I think it was an episode of Arthur with the Headless Horseman in it. It hit me a certain way. It hit different. Next we have Voldemort on the back of Quirrell's head. Is Voldemort on the back of Quirrell's head technically a Halloween monster? Voldemort killed Harry's parents on Halloween, so we're gonna allow it. I don't know what it was, but the first time I read Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, something about the scene and the way it was described about Voldemort on the back of Quirrell's head, it shook me to my very core. I was anxious about it for months afterwards, no joke. A Harry Potter musical is a fan-made musical about Harry Potter, and they made the most brilliant decision when it came to Voldemort on the back of Quirrell's head. I'm just gonna show you a picture or a video or something. Isn't this the most brilliant creative choice you've ever seen? Well, guess what? It's not even the most brilliant creative choice in the entire show. A Harry Potter musical is amazing. Next up on the list, we're finally getting out of the monsters and getting into the Halloween-related things. We've got gross candy. Candy corn is not the only gross candy, but oh boy, is it gross. It's going in probably at the root of my Samhainophobia. I was a picky eater as a child. Let's be honest, I'm still a picky eater, but it's less bad now. Next we have corn mazes. I'm not afraid of corn mazes. Are they even really a Halloween thing or just a fall thing? I went to a corn maze recently with my siblings and had a lot of fun. I always think I'm gonna be better at corn mazes than I actually am. I have a poor sense of direction. Anyway, corn mazes go on unbothered because I am not afraid of them and I never have been afraid of them, except for when it like gets dark and I'm still lost. But that's not the corn maze's fault. That's my fault. Next we have bobbing for apples. Bobbing for apples goes in pretty scary because you can't see, you can't breathe, and everyone's watching you. Next we have jack-o'-lanterns. I like jack-o'-lanterns. I think they're cool. Maybe sometimes I'd see a jack-o'-lantern that I thought was creepy, but for the most part I was okay with jack-o'-lanterns, so jack-o'-lanterns go in unbothered. Next we have carving pumpkins. Carving pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns, like the concept of jack-o'-lanterns, are not the same thing. I'm unbothered by jack-o'-lanterns, but I hate carving pumpkins. It's disgusting. I hate the smell of pumpkin. I don't even like eating anything pumpkin flavored. And I hate the goop. I hate the gunk. So carving pumpkins goes in pretty scary. Mostly because it's gross and not because it's scary. Next we have haunted houses. This one's easy. Probably at the root of my Samhainophobia. People who dress up as scarecrows or in ghillie suits and sit next to their doors so they can scare little kids. Probably at the root of my Samhainophobia. I know that sounds oddly specific, and it's because it is. Ooh, next we have gross food. Like those cookies that are made to look like witches' fingers. I have always hated the idea of making food that's meant to look gross. Probably at the root of my Samhainophobia. And last but not least, we have the traumatic experience that I think triggered my Samhainophobia. Before this Halloween in grade 1, I remember being spooked on Halloween, but it wasn't Samhainophobia. It was not the deep, intense anxiety that I've had since. Look, I'm admitting it. I'm finally admitting that I probably still have a little bit of Samhainophobia. This whole time I've been dancing around the issue and being like, no, I don't think I really have it. You just made an entire video about how you have it, love. So we're just embracing this now. You're gonna laugh at me. The traumatic event that sparked my Samhainophobia is when they showed us a movie in class on Halloween. Double Toil and Trouble with Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. I have no explanation. None at all. I looked up the plot on Wikipedia and I'm like, I remember that and I remember it being kind of scary, but not that scary. It had Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen in it. Obviously it goes in the probably at the root of my Samhainophobia tier. I don't want to re-watch this movie because I'm worried that it'll make me feel really dumb. Because I guarantee it's not as scary as grade 1 me thought it was. To be fair though, my mom pointed out yesterday that I hadn't even seen Snow White. Like, she didn't let me watch scary movies. This may have been the scariest movie I had ever seen in my entire life. Let me know if I need to watch Double Toil and Trouble with Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. It might be good for my phobia. I don't know. Thanks for watching this episode of Something with Rebecca. The next episode is gonna be on the history of Halloween. Have a lovely day. Sorry, have a spooky day. See ya.